granniopteryx, she knows the truth, she's linking every link.
This is a rather, very sad story about someone whose life was ruined by her British optimism about the goodness of human nature and how nice people are nice people. That's the way they look and that's the way they are. It's also the fault of organisations like the BBC and schools who teach the same horse manure about immigrants without giving any idea of the fact that different cultures have different attitudes towards human relationships, especially towards the relationships of men and women. So I'm just going to be talking about using this case and talking about it, and I hope warning some people, although it's rather like spitting into the wind, isn't it? Okay, I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video, please share it, please subscribe to my channel, and if you want to help me financially, all the links are in the description. Okay, let's talk about the problems of East and West. Now, I've actually gone through this before in several videos, so I feel a bit like I'm just repeating, I am repeating the same thing again and again. But unfortunately, it seems like this sort of thing has to be repeated again and again. Well, of course, I get new subscribers who aren't familiar with this, but it all stems from the following. When you are a Christian or a Jew, I'm just talking about Christianity, Judaism and Islam. I'm not going into Hinduism or Zoroastrianism or even Baha'i or anything like that. But the basic culture in this country is Christian, and Islam is gaining ground here, mostly out of carelessness. We aren't shocked enough about the Muslim attitude to life and human relationships. So I'm just going to repeat something I've said before. It's a very important point. When you are comparing the Muslim attitude to the relationship between people, especially men and women, and the Christian attitude to the same sort of setup. In Christianity, God is your father. Right, so you have a father-child relationship with God. Now, this is a somewhat mutual relationship. It may be lopsided to a certain extent in as much as father knows best sort of thing, and has a responsibility for you, but it is a mutual relationship. And a lot of people, especially good Christians who aren't very well informed, assume that Islam is just like that, with Muhammad as in the place of Jesus. So there's Christianity, which has this relationship between people and their God, and Islam, which has its relationship between people and Allah. And they're sort of evenly balanced. That's how a lot of people who don't understand Islam think about Islam, when they just make basic assumptions. It doesn't work like that. You see, as I said, Christianity holds that you have a child-father relationship with your God. In Islam, it's a slave-master relationship. Allah is not your father. He is your owner. So a Muslim has the relationship with God that the Muslim is the slave of the God. of Allah. That's why there are so many names that begin with the form abd or abdul, meaning slave or slave of. Right. When you've got that sorted out, everything else dribbles down from that. When you have a father and son relationship, you can argue with your dad. When you have a master-slave relationship, there's no arguing. You don't argue with your master. I mean, you might find, like Greek plays of slaves who play tricks on their masters, but that's not something that would happen in real life, and everybody understands that. That's why they were comedies. The social relationship of people in Muslim societies comes down from this basic assumption that when you are in charge, you are in a master-slave relationship with whoever you're in charge of. So you might be a good master and a kind master, but you are a master. If your slave betrays you, then you can be as betrayed and furious as you like. Whereas, again, if you're in a boss-employee relationship in a Christian society, well, you may feel betrayed if your employee is acting badly or, stealing funds or whatever. It's not quite the same force, though, and that's why we have laws where employers cannot summarily dismiss employees. There are more humane laws, sometimes, in my opinion, that go a bit too far. Oh, blast, I've just changed the microphone. Is that any better? I don't know whether I should have done that. Anyway, that's what the problem is. And people in the West who have relationships, who get into relationships with Muslims, don't realise that there are these two little basic assumptions that we have. That we assume that when we open the front door, the front doorstep is going to be there every morning. That's a sort of basic assumption you don't think about. Well, those are basic assumptions, that the relationships between people are more equal in the West than they are in Muslim societies. And that's why one of the reasons why Muslim societies are not incredibly successful a lot of the time. And they are only successful in Muslim societies where Islam is kept very strictly on a leash. So what we have here is a young woman who married an Afghan man. And he was really nice to her before they got married. And as soon as he married her, he turned into a monster. And now she's spending her life running away from him. He finally divorced her, went and married somebody else in Afghanistan. And he's been attacking her, stalking her. And in his morality, there isn't a lot wrong with that. Because, you see, when a Muslim man marries a woman, she becomes his property in the same way as he is the property of God. And so you can do what you want with your property, and I'm quite sure it doesn't even enter his mind that she is an equal human being with equal validity. No, she is property. And Muhammad himself said this in the Quran. Somebody asked him about having sex with women. I mean, which parts of the woman can you have sex with? And he said something like, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but it's something like, look, that woman's your field. You can go into your field at any point you wish. And it's the same thing. I'm not now talking about sex. I'm just talking about an attitude to the woman, because the woman is in a lesser position to the man, and the man is in a lesser position to Allah. And it just gets passed along. What's the worst thing you can say about a man in this country and in America? That he's a wife beater. Yeah, that is the epitome of the coward and the bully, is it not? Somebody who will knock his wife about. That doesn't exist in Muslim societies. Being a wife beater is an honourable thing. And I do wish that people, women, especially women who have been brought up in Christian societies and have these basic assumptions that they are equal, if not in strength, in spirit to men. I do wish they'd understand that this is not the assumption that a lot of Muslim men have. And even the most well-educated will slip into this because it's part of their background programming. Her ex-husband, at the time her husband, got her pregnant because that would the better make him a candidate for British naturalisation, which is what happened. And she said she's been writing to the Home Office all the time about this, the way he's treated her, and the fact that she realised he was using her. Well, why shouldn't you use your field to grow anything you want? And it says the Home Office is doing nothing. A Home Office spokesman said, while we do not comment on individual cases, we take any abuse of the immigration system extremely seriously. Yeah, which reminds me of those times you're trying to get onto a web page and they say, we take your privacy seriously. And then you look down at the list of organisations that they are giving your personal information and purchasing details to. Yeah, like really, you're taking us you're taking our privacy seriously, are you? Well, that's the way the Home Office, it's extremely seriously is one of those, cut and paste things. We'll put it there. They are not taking these things seriously, and they are not. And people are not being warned about this either. I'm not saying all Muslims are terrible people. Obviously, they are not. But there's this background cultural assumption that we have to be aware of, and everyone has to be aware of it, and especially the Home Office, but yeah, very especially nice English girls who think that everybody thinks the way they do. Right, well, that's it. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.